Hello there. This is Aaron Barzilai and Alford Corriette with the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. We are live on the ground here in Phoenix for WNBA All-Star, joined by our super producer, Nathan Ford. Really appreciate the work. We've actually spent a bit of effort for those of you that have seen some of our other on-site podcasts. Hopefully we've improved the audio quality with these new mics. And so please let us know if it sounds good. Or if it still needs a little work, but we hope you'll all be loving it. Alfred, I've enjoyed spending a lot of time with you today. I appreciate it's about 7:30 here in Phoenix, 10:30 East Coast time. So we spent how many hours together since we met at Newark Airport this morning at like 9 a.m. Eastern, right?
Quite a few.
Yeah, so I appreciate your willingness to spend a little time with me today and just chat about what kind of we've seen so far and what we're looking forward to this weekend. So I think we got off to a great start. Kathy Engelbert was on our flight. She was the first of many today to compliment you on your shirt.
Yes, indeed.
You're definitely got the Valley vibes going. The Arizona Diamondbacks marketing folks that we talked to were say you remind them of it's a throwback for me. I think it was like the 1993 Major League Baseball All-Star game. So, but yeah, it's been a great day. What has been kind of some of the highlights for you so far today from walking around Phoenix?
Yeah, I think the vibe is just, you can tell that All-Star Weekend is here. You know, you see it in the airports, you see it on the streets. Like Phoenix has really showed out in terms of the overall presentation, and they really want to make this feel like a big attraction, which it should be. Being able to walk around WNBA Live, get a bit of that media preview, you know, we really saw an elevated sense in terms of the booths and just the overall size and sheer size. We were told that there was an increase in the square footage up to 85,000 square footage, which is a lot. Yes. So, you know, tons of vendors, tons of things, tons of activities for fans to do. So being able to see that, and then we also had the opportunity to see the Diana Taurasi court commemoration with basically a who's who of the WNBA, Commissioner Engelbert, GMs, coaches, everybody it seemed was there.
ESPN personalities, Holly,
exactly.
We saw Ryan Rucco and Lobo. Cindy Brunson, play-by-play announcer for the Mercury, was there. A lot of media, a lot of folks that I'm sure if you are listening or watching us today on YouTube, that you're probably aware of a lot of the media folks that were there as well, because they were
tons of folks.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I guess I'm not so sure I would go as far as to say Phoenix has showed out yet. I was a little underwhelmed by the signage when we walked off the plane. You know, it was pretty good. We tweeted out some of the photos of the baggage claim. I thought that was nice. You know, Phoenix, it's an interesting thing. I actually grew up here, went to elementary school and high school here. And so, you know, I didn't really come down to this downtown area. These are, I'm old enough, right? These arenas didn't exist before I left for college. And so there's not like a ton of people walking around, right? I mean, Phoenix is a tough place to walk. What was the temperature today? I think 114 or something.
Yeah, just in that ballpark.
So fortunately, we're staying close to the Footprint Center and WNBA Live, the Convention Center, which is also incredibly close. I think we can survive the heat for a little bit. So, but yeah, it's great signs. We tried to tweet out some photos, and it's just exciting to be here. You can sort of feel the energy. I at least am feeling the energy of being here.
Of course, you know, the energy here is great, and even though more fans will come in later today and we'll get the full experience tomorrow, you really feel that anticipation here.
Yes, for sure. Excited. As you said, I thought WNBA Live definitely felt bigger than last year. I think it's going to feel more crowded too. They were talking about how they were hoping to have get even more space next year. So it definitely seems like this is not the same kind of scale as some of the All-Stars that we've been to in the past. One kind of notable thing, right, was a little harder to get the invitation, the photograph, the orange carpet, which is normally due for us. So I think that as the league is growing, the All-Star game is growing. And as you said, it was amazing to be at the new Phoenix Mercury practice facility.
That practice facility is definitely impressive. You can tell, you know, the level of investment that owner Matt Ishbia is putting into the Mercury with that type of facility in terms of just all the amenities that they had. We saw pools, we saw lighting, weights, everything.
Yeah, and my understanding was they really pushed to have it open. I think today was the official opening today, and then they also dedicated the Diana Taurasi court. My understanding is that it's roughly 3 to 6 months ahead of schedule. I think they're really pushing to have it done in time to show it off for All-Star. As we heard today, Matt Ishbia, it's spelled with one T, but a lot of zeros. So I think that solved a lot of construction challenges. And, it sounded like from talking to some of the people, a lot of things probably came together at the last minute. I think if we had gotten a tour yesterday, it would have looked quite as impressive, but it still would have been obvious how amazing. But it was just bright and airy, really. It's one story, but it's really high ceilings. It looks sort of a little bit like a converted warehouse or something, I'd say. And yeah, the weights looked amazing. I tweeted out a picture of I guess the hot tubs or whatever. We saw the training tables. And so you could tell they really kind of thought about the journey of an athlete as they essentially park their car and walk in the building, go to the locker room, go to medical, stretch out, stuff like that, go do weights, and then go to the court. So it was all kind of a flow that really kind of they thought through as part of the design of it.
Almost definitely. And, when you talk to other media people that are experiencing that, the one thing that popped up a lot was that it felt natural. Like this should be the standard for players going into a facility like this, where they should have all of these things laid out for them. And that should be a normal part of their practicing. So I think as we start to see more and more teams get facilities, Phoenix and other teams have really set the mark high, and we're just hoping that more teams can follow.
Yeah, and it's going to, of course, that kind of segues into a topic we discussed briefly, which is this television deal, which seems like it's going to bring in a lot of revenue. I think it's not official yet, but based on the reporting for The Athletic, Mike Vorkunov, I think $200 million for I guess what you think of as the main partners, or the partners that are part of the NBA deal. That's Disney, ABC, ESPN, Amazon, and NBC. It sounds like that's going to be roughly on average 200 million. That means I think it'll be a little less than 200 million in year one, and a little more than 200 million. I expect it to grow over the course of an 11-year deal, but it's like 2.2 billion over 11 years. I believe is what they said. So, a lot of that means there's going to be more money. It's going to be interesting to see. It already kind of felt a little bit like an arms race, but it did require an owner with deep pockets, along the lines of Matt Ishbia, to build a facility like this. And now the teams are going to start to have more and more revenue. It might not be, I do think it's going to be a little muted though, because of the ownership structure of the league / the W. It's very confusing, right? But unlike, say, the NBA, where almost all of that money from the television deal flows to the teams, not all of it's going to flow directly to, say, the owners of the Atlanta Dream or the Dallas Wings or the Chicago Sky, because the NBA gets a portion through its ownership structure. And then there was that investment, the raise, I think it was last year, maybe a little bit before that, where some outside investors, people like Condoleezza Rice, purchased as well. So, but it's going to be fascinating to see how the league just continues to invest in facilities like this. So something like this becomes the norm, as you said.
Almost definitely. And I think the main thing that you're going to want to see now with this reported new TV deal is how players are going to try to prep for a likely new CBA. They have the ability to opt out, which will make 2025 the last year of the CBA if they do. So now that they have the TV deal, now they want to ensure that possibly can they negotiate and bargain for higher salaries, things that we want to see the players get moving forward.
Yeah, and Terry Jackson, right, signaled part of the reporting, I think it was today in the New York Times by Tanya Ganguly, that it seems like they're going to be quite aggressive, right? I would expect that they're going to ask for, now that the money is rather significant, I think they're going to ask for, a much higher share of the BRI. We don't need the basketball-related income, right? Just for context, a lot of leagues, sort of judge how much the players are played collectively based on like what fraction of the revenue that basketball generates. Yes, I think that excludes like parking at the arena and stuff. But the actual tickets, the TV deals, the merch, all that kind of official merch, all that kind of stuff. The new DraftKings deal, I don't know if you saw that press release that the WNBA signed an agreement. I think that came out today. It's been a blur. But I think that came out today that they signed a deal which gave DraftKings the rights to, I think, some of the, the IP and things like that, the intellectual property. So, typically, like the NBA, it's sort of split automatically 50-50. That's what they negotiated to. It actually used to be higher. and the owners brought it down from 57% going to the players to 50. We don't know what the exact number is. It's been reported a few different things, I think, but I'm not sure that we have a specific number, but we think it's on the order of 20% or so. And so not only is just revenue growing, which would help the salaries, but, I would expect the WNBPA to ask for, a similar share as to, what the NBA is getting. And, they'll be looking at benchmarks across all leagues, not just, men's basketball, but I think other women's sports, I think other men's sports as well beyond basketball, to see kind of what's kind of really a fair thing. And as the revenue from the TV deal and whatnot becomes less, really dwarfs the fixed investment of things like facilities, then I think that number is going to get much closer to parity.
Yep.
So it's going to be fascinating to see just how much salaries rise. I don't think it would not surprise me if salaries go up by more than 5 times between the new revenue and potentially getting more share.
Yeah, well, that's something that I think fans and players are definitely going to want to see.
And it's going to be, it's really going to be fascinating, right? I mean, if the Supermax becomes more than $1 million, right? If the minimum salaries, get up, right now, the rookie deals are like 70, right? They might be more than a Supermax is now.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think a lot of people will be watching it. There's going to be a lot of reporting. I think also we're just, as we're seeing the league get more attention, I think there's going to be more energy around reporting these deals. And so one thing I'm interested in is monitoring how much of this information becomes public. One of my pet peeves, I would say, is when a major men's league sports franchise gets sold, we know the number instantly.
That's
true. We actually did see that with the purchase of Angel City FC, Bob Iger and Willa Bay. Purchased, I think, for $250 million in the last week. And so, especially as there's a better story to tell, I think we're going to start to see more and more. But I think some of the same reporters that have been digging in other sports are realizing there's a compelling story to tell and an appetite for people to know this information. That's one of the reasons we have all of our salary cap data on our site and why we work so hard at it, is we think that, while at some level it's a little weird to know how much everybody makes, if you think about, we don't necessarily know that for doctors and lawyers and teachers, but, it has sort of been the status quo in the sports world. And it's really, enables discussions about things like, hey, what needs to happen, maybe to make the Marina Mabrey trade or something like that. Certainly it factors in, how many guaranteed contracts you have and what transactions does that allow or prevent. So having access to all this information, I think, is great.
Yeah, I definitely think it's great because of the intrigue that's in it.
Yeah.
I recall when the Seattle Storm were financing the facility that they created, the valuation for the Storm Post facility came out, and many were saying that, okay, why isn't this available for other teams, to see like how much a team like the Aces could be valued as, a team like the Liberty or a team like the Spark. So definitely getting access to more information definitely just makes everything better.
Exactly. So, but it's great to see the growth. It's good, I think the owners, both the people that participated in that raise and the established owners, are definitely happy. It would have been nice to have been able to buy a super small slice ourselves. See how that goes. That definitely would have paid off. But yeah, I mean, the other piece of data that I was excited when I heard Andrea Carter talking about it last weekend at halftime is, one other piece of data we're all going to be excited to see is when we start to get the votes for the awards. So that'll be fun. So yeah, it's All-Star Weekend tomorrow. Do you have any other thoughts about tomorrow? Is the skills challenge
and the
three-point contest? And I think you and I are still confused. We haven't had time to really read our email. There's going to be a 3-on-3 exhibition. I'm not sure if it happened or if it.
I believe there's going to be
podcasting. I'm sorry.
I think there's going to be something with that tomorrow because it has been promoted for TV.
Yeah, so that's going to be the 3-on-3 national team playing against, I guess they called it the senior team, which kind of confused me, but nevertheless, I think it's also a tune-up for them in the same way it is for the main All-Star game.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's also going to be other things happening as part of the All-Star Weekend. I think one thing that's going to be interesting for those that can make it out is the second basketball without borders camp, the second annual all-female basketball without borders camp, featuring some of the brightest young talent from all over the world, players that are considered future draft picks, possibly as early as next year. So it'll be a good chance for people to see the next generation of basketball on a worldwide basis.
Yes, for sure. I think there would be a lot of stuff, a lot of fans. I was talking to some fans as I was coming down here today to record this. They are in town from Sacramento, old school Monarch fans back in the day. I hadn't realized this, but they were excited that the League Breeze color scheme, I guess, is the Monarchs.
Yeah.
They were claiming it for themselves, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I mean, their eyes lit up as I was asking them about, what they were going to do. I think they said it was their first All-Star game with Sheila. Shout out to Sheila and Deidre here at our hotel. And, they were super excited for the meet and greets, WNBA Live, all kinds of stuff. And then clearly they had tickets for the events on both Friday and Saturday. Do you, what is your take on the field tomorrow?
Oh, well, I know there was a little bit of online scrutiny on the field of competition.
Twitter chatter?
Of course, a little Twitter chatter, a little fans that had skepticism on the field. But I think this is probably a very robust field. You look at some of the field in the three-point contest. Jonquil Jones, has been electric from three this season, so it makes sense to have her there. Stephanie Dolson's one of the most notable floor spacing bigs that we have. Alicia Gray is also in there. So I think the field is definitely a good crop of what is available, because it was also reported today that, players like Caitlin Clark and Sabrina Ionescu, they were extended an invitation, but they obviously declined. So I think for what they were able to get, this is a pretty good field. I think fans should still have some intrigue into what we should see.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I think it's you see other leagues. First of all, first question for you: are you a fan of All-Star games in general?
I am, because I think I'm more a fan of the atmosphere and attention that comes, because it's one of the few moments that sports leagues have to just have essentially a nice little party for the league.
Exactly.
To bring everybody, bring fans, bring celebrities, bring everything, all in one centralized place. So I'm a fan of that aspect of All-Star games.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to be here and just feel the excitement. It's always fun to be at a place where just there's tons of people all focused on women's basketball. It's the same feeling at the Final Four every year. You just feel like you're in your community, and that's wonderful. At the same time, typically I don't enjoy watching the All-Star games. I'm usually more interested in things like the three-point shootout and the skills challenge. I did confirm with our Richard Cohen that I do not believe that they have All-Star games today for European football, soccer. I don't think the English Premier League or anything like that, the Bundesliga, has an All-Star game. So it's kind of an interesting American construction. I don't really tend to watch All-Star games. I did not watch the Major League Baseball All-Star game last week. I don't watch the Pro Bowl. I have kind of stopped watching the NBA All-Star game. I do watch NBA All-Star Saturday night. It was great to see Sabrina earlier. So it is a showcase. I feel sort of mixed about people like Caitlin and Sabrina not participating. They've totally earned it. It's been a huge grind, especially with the crazy schedule because of the Olympic break that's coming up. But at the same time, it is a bit of a showcase, and it's an interesting question whether the All-Star is for potential new fans, the way so much I think of what we really try to focus on as a community to some degree is bringing in new fans. Hopefully, we're not bringing in too much crazy discussion as we have unfortunately seen a chunk of the season. But at some level, it is a reward for the diehard fans. So people like you and me are going to appreciate all the participants, right? I'm excited to see Alicia Gray. I think Caleb McBride, I forget if you mentioned or not. I mean, you talk about electric. Every time she shoots, it feels like it's going in. The skills challenge doesn't really do as much for me, but it's still fun to watch in the moment. I do wonder, I mean, obviously I think there's going to be less interest and, from a growing the game perspective, you would like to have more, as much star power as possible. So it would have been nice to have seen that, but at the same time, I think I'm still going to enjoy it for sure.
Oh, sure. Definitely.
Yeah. Do you have a pick for, in particular, the 3-point contest?
Well, for the 3-point contest, I have to keep it with the Liberty, and I have to go with Jonquil Jones.
Okay, well, I'm going to. That's good then. I can take Caleb, and we don't have to agree.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then the skills challenge. I don't think, do we even know do I know what the dribbling, bounce pass, chest pass, outlet pass,
Mhm.
and shots. I think it's going to be in the same thing. Obstacles include a 2025 Kia Sorento Turbo Hybrid. Kia, if you're listening, we'd be happy to have you sponsor the podcast in addition to the skills challenge. So the participants for that, I am excited, right? So Brittany Griner, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
You mentioned Alicia Gray, Sophie Cunningham. So we got two Mercury. New Connecticut Sun Guard, Marina Mabrey is going to be there, and so is Erica Wheeler.
Okay.
Which will be fun. So yeah, do you have a pick for that?
I think that might be a contest for Marina Mabrey because I think her game in terms of her ability to do things like distribute, we talk about the balance passing, her ability to have guard skills like dribbling. I think Marina Mabrey might be someone that can be the winner of the skills contest this year.
Interesting. Cool. This is great. We don't have to pretend to disagree because I'm going to take Alicia Gray.
All right.
I think she's underappreciated in this league in general. I love her game. And so, yeah, I guess now I can root for her. We'll see. We can come back and decide who got bragging rights. Hopefully we can even remember who we picked next time we podcast. But yeah, that'll be fun. So yeah, Marina Mabrey was in the news this week.
Yeah, she was.
That was a pretty surprising trade.
It was.
Given the history of her transaction.
Mm-hmm.
What was your reaction when you saw that news come through?
I think I had the same shock as most people as that blockbuster of a trade. I know some people were interested to see like how that fit happens with Dejanay Carrington, given the whole backstory and their back and forth exchanges. But I think this is a trade that works for both teams. Actually, if you're the Connecticut Sun, many have had questions on, is this roster good enough to compete against New York and Las Vegas? And if you're Connecticut, you have to be in a sort of win-now mode with players like Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner. And, bringing on Marina Mabrey to try to give you that extra firepower is something that will benefit the Sun. You look at the Connecticut Sun also having players like Alyssa Thomas and Bree Jones as potential free agents next year. Mm-hmm. You don't know what the future may hold for some of these players, especially if extensions aren't signed. So if you're the Connecticut Sun, you really want to try to make a move that pushes you into that, okay, we can compete with the Vegases, we can compete with the New Yorks. If you're Chicago, you definitely needed a shooter, so you bringing in Rachel Badham definitely works there. You bring in Mariah Jefferson, who is an exceptional small guard when healthy. You also recoup some of that draft capital. Yeah. So I think it works well for both teams.
Yeah, I think it definitely, for Chicago, is a little more looking towards the future. Mm-hmm. Richard Cohen, I hope you read him today on the newsletter, broke down his trade grades. He gave him both a B. I thought it was interesting. But he did raise the interesting point, right? Like, is Mabrey going to start? He seemed to think maybe not, that, perhaps she would be, sixth woman off the bench. And so then it's like, how much, she's going to play a lot, right? Yeah. But, it's not like you brought in another, I'm not sure I would go all the way to blockbuster. I think what's just blockbuster about it for the WNBA is that we had an interesting trade with the trade deadline. It's pretty rare, given the rules, but I think they've loosened a little bit. Maybe they'll loosen them more in the CBA negotiations. But yeah, I think that it's unclear to me that it pushes it over the top. I think Richard said that like in their last 15 games against New York and Las Vegas, Connecticut is 2-13. Right? Yeah. So it's a little unclear, is it going to push them to 4 and 13 instead? It's not clear it's going to get them to 8 and 7 to bring Marina over, but definitely it is nice to see them pushing, and I think it's exciting this year, right? Yeah. That it's Vegas is still the betting favorite, and that might be my favorite. I'm guessing you would take the Liberty.
Of course,
they obviously are playing quite well, but it feels a little more wide open. Maybe part of it is New York probably going to have home court advantage. That's definitely not certain, but they've got a nice start with a start to that with the slow start that the Aces had in particular. But I think most people think the Aces will push for the second half of the season after the Olympic break.
Yeah, I think the big thing for Aces is now having Chelsea Gray back into the rotation, into the fold, where they didn't really have her as before, before, and now really integrating her back, rebuilding that chemistry that they may have lost with her out of the lineup.
They can rebuild it in Paris, right?
Exactly. So, I think it's going to be good.
Yeah. Do you have a pick for, sorry, jumping back to the All-Star game, do you have a pick for All-Star MVP?
Ooh, that's a very interesting one. I'll say this because I know she's going to want to live up to the moment. I would not be surprised if we see a big push by Caitlin Clark to try to, one up her Rookie of the Year campaign of what she's trying to do. So I wouldn't be surprised. I know a lot of fans are going to come in to see her. So I think she's going to try to live up to those expectations.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure she will try. Everybody will, right? It'll be interesting what Angel does. I want to pick DT.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
But then, how much is she going to play? But it is home, representing Phoenix. So, but yeah, you're. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to take.
Yeah.
Is it lame to take Asia?
Oh no, you can never go wrong with Asia Wilson.
No,
on any
cliche, but she's awesome. It's so great to see that. I think people are starting to recognize her. Right, she's just so compelling. Yeah. Every time you talk to her, she's such a. She seems like a wonderful person. She's a great advocate for the game.
Oh, definitely.
And it's nice to see people recognize this amazing season that she's having. So yeah, okay, I'll be a little. It's not exactly going off the board, but I'll take Asia.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, other questions. I have a question for you.
Okay.
So Debbie Antonelli, of course, we love hearing her hoop stats. She and Christy doing the Hoopin' with Christy and Debbie podcast, I think we call it, on Mondays. We're so grateful to have both of them podcasting with us. She has been, for the longest time, proclaiming that the NCAA should do the Sweet 16 to Vegas. That it's just a great place. Everybody can come. There's certainty, which makes it easier to travel. You're not going to have some of the same issues that we had this past year in the tournament. So my question for you is, what is your position on, should we do the All-Star game in Vegas every year, or do you like kind of moving it around? It would be certainly unusual if the W had one fixed site, but what do you think about always doing it in Vegas versus, Phoenix this year? I'm hearing a lot of not rumors, but people wondering if Seattle will get it next year.
You see, I actually like Vegas as a city.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so much easier to get around in Vegas. There's just, everything is just right there in one central location for the most part.
Traffic is a pain, or you're getting to the strip or whatever, but
but I think if you're on the strip, there's just so many things that are just happening there in that central location. And then around this time of the All-Star game, you have other things going on, like Summer League and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to try to factor all of that in, and I think All-Star in Vegas last year was just such a wonderful experience that I wouldn't be adverse to it being in Las Vegas every year.
Yeah, I've been to, I think it's two, because I think I went in 2019 and then last year. I really do enjoy it. I mean, it seems crazy at some level to do it. I think it is a nice, I guess I'm going to reserve my opinion a little bit until Saturday just to see what it's like. But I mean, it's going to be the X factor. It's going to be packed. So it is a nice reward for fans to be able to get to all these places. It would be nice if there was a network of halls and tunnels and stuff here in Phoenix, the way there is in Vegas, so we don't have to step outside like you often do not have to in Vegas. But as much as it is an amazing setting, I do think it's especially it's easy to get to Vegas because everybody goes there all the time. Anyhow, right? You're a New York guy. We both live in New Jersey, and it'd be nice to have it at Barclays someday.
It would be.
So and kind of a chance to spread it out and get a lot more exposure. So I think in what we were talking about before, right? It just promotes, I think, the league too much, city to city, to have it, and it also does in that, for some leagues, it serves as a little bit of an enticement to invest in your facility or have a nice facility. And then often that's the reward, is that you get the All-Star game. And so as the All-Star game becomes more monetarily lucrative for the league, and I think the teams, I don't know how much money the teams get typically from an All-Star game, because it's very much run by the league this weekend. But presumably it would be a net win to see a lot more energy. So I have a hard time, as much as I would love the idea of doing it in Vegas every year and the certainty of that, it would become a tradition, right? But at at the same time, it's hard to take it away from
Oh,
markets,
definitely.
like Minneapolis or something.
I totally understand it. You definitely want to market the league as a whole and bring it from city to city, and especially when you think of expansion happening. To think of possibly an All-Star game in Toronto. If Toronto becomes an attractive location for San Francisco as well.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to figure out when we're going to make our reservations for that one.
Definitely.
So cool. Okay, well, we've gone about 30 minutes. So I think it's probably a good time to call it. Thanks everybody for joining us. Again, I'd encourage you subscribe, give us 5 stars, follow us both in audio form on the podcast, YouTube. Most importantly, please help support us by subscribing to our stats site, herdhoopstats.com. The newsletter, free newsletter. I think you'd really enjoy that as well if you're listening. And yeah, Alfred and I will be on the ground here all weekend. Look for us on social media as well as, another podcast or two. Thanks a lot.
Yep.